Thank you very much for joining us on the Voice of Job Seekers podcast. This is Mark, and I'm your host. As always, I'm willing to help you with the job search, doing everything possibly can to give you the most relevant information. And hopefully, you are ready to join me for this particular episode with Keirsten Greggs. And Greggs, I should say, and I always goof up her name. We call her Kristen or Catherine or something like that. And then I always forget the head name. It's Keirsten Greggs. She's the TrapRecruiter. She's always is joining me this fall for episodes. And during the summer, we're doing this thing. So I wanted her to bring her best problems to job seekers so they can know what it's like to work with a recruiter, perhaps get the experience. First of all, hello, Keirsten. How are you?
Hi, thank you for having me. Glad to be back. Still riding high from our last appearance together.
Yeah.
Bringing back some of the old school and good hip hop
Yes.
and applying it to the workforce. So,
Yes, maybe the next we could do like a 90s R&B theme kind of thing. We could do that for our next show next month, 6 weeks or whatever we decide. But nevertheless, thank you so much. And this is featuring you and your advice. You've been a recruiter for a little while now, and you've
yeah.
got a chance to taste multiple dishes and fruits, and hopefully you can bring to us what's going to be the most helpful for job seekers these days. Well, this just seems, I don't know if you notice, I know this is a little sidebar, but there just seems to be several sets of advice now amongst recruiters. And there's this one camp who says one thing and this other camp another thing. Right now, it must be pretty exhausting for recruiters to go on LinkedIn and try to get some advice without getting some pushback of any kind for decent advice, even.
Yes. So I am a recruiter, but I've also been a job seeker. So I have empathy and I feel connected to both sides, especially since I also work as a career coach. But a lot of the misgivings that people have about recruiters are not far off. Sometimes we say some of the most outlandish and just horrible things. You have to remember recruiters are people too, and you have to take the good with the bad. But yeah, I do my best now not to engage so much of the bad stuff because I could spend all day going through LinkedIn and, getting in people's comments or sharing and,
Sure.
and commenting on my own. So the best I can do is to amplify the good stuff so that my network does see that there are people who are speaking things that will ultimately help you and not harm you, or that aren't just fads or one time and one off experiential types of exceptions. I'm here
Mhm.
to be exceptional, not an exception.
Yes. And you brought up a good point. Now, I don't know if you realize you referred to it now, but there are different sectors that recruiters have worked in
Yeah.
that apply to their sector, but not necessarily to others. My friend Jack is a compliance recruiter. His rules are completely different than everybody else's. So if he
Right.
says something, it's going to, he fortunately is able to add context. A lot of times, people, even career coaches and career advisors and whoever, they don't set context to say, I work in this industry. Like the people in higher education are pretty good about saying, in higher ed, we see things this way.
Correct.
In other industries, they're not as careful or judicious about what they say, knowing that it might be slightly misleading. Now, I understand everybody's trying to serve people and trying to be helpful. I'm not trying to take money out of people's pocket, but I think there needs to be context to everything that we have. So, in context, you're providing some problems that are just going to be softly spread out throughout, not
Yeah.
necessarily geared to them. So that's what people will need to know right here. So what is the first recruiter problem that job seekers need to know?
Okay. So I'm not going to beat up on job seekers too much, but the first two are directly for job seekers. Every recruiter does not work for Google, Facebook, even the company I just separated from. Um, so these well-known brands, every recruiter doesn't work for that big, huge company that has all of the resources and that doesn't have to do too much to attract you to apply to their jobs because they are such a big brand. They are well known and their name speaks for themselves. A lot of recruiters do spend time sourcing, and this is not just sourcers, but there are recruiters who source too, depending on the size of their company or how skilled they are at it. So you have to be discoverable. And you got a lot of folks who don't have any information on their LinkedIn page. There's no resume anywhere. They don't know that your company exists, so they're not coming to apply for your jobs. They're not engaging with you in your network and things like that. They're not making it known that they actually are looking for a job. That was one of those arguments last week, a few weeks ago. Now, I shouldn't call it an argument, but one of those questions, stir up conversation, that there was a portion of recruiters who said anybody who put that open to work banner on their LinkedIn profile looks desperate. And then you had others who were like, open to work is great. Like, we need to know that. And if you remember, I actually did write an entire piece in her site about how to use the open to work feature and why it was important that you do that. Again, for a lot of people, if you are discoverable, we can't connect you to the good job. You've got recruiters out here that could find a needle in a haystack. And I'm not saying that frivolously, like that really can, but they can only find you if you're in the haystack. So be discoverable. Oh, there, we got a comment here.
Yeah, Lisa Rangel, my buddy, my friend, who is a former recruiter executive and also a prominent career coach and resume writer around these neck of the woods. My buddy, what's up? She agrees with you. Fortune 500 is only 500 companies. And I think that's where it's worth a little bit of discussion, though we're kind of limiting our time today. And perhaps the next time we could talk about how the loudest voices seem to be prominent and everybody else doesn't matter as much when there's all these other subsects of industries that people can apply to and get into. Just because there's a hiring freeze in tech doesn't mean there's a hiring freeze in education or in healthcare. In fact, you might find it the direct opposite. People need to keep that in mind, keep everything in context. So that's why I say be contextual as that advice is given and take it as such and don't take it as the hard, fast rule for the industry that you're in.
Correct. The latest job numbers just came out, remember? And now they're saying that there's literally 2 jobs for every 1 person. And when you throw out numbers like that, again, the numbers wise, that might be true, but that's not necessarily a talent match. That's not necessarily a match for your geographic location or the level that you want to be at or the company or a company that you want to be at. So I think we get caught up in, especially when, we're having this, it's a weird time again. I know we keep saying this, oh, it's a weird time. And I feel like every time we say it, it gets weirder. You've got a bunch of jobs, but if you've got other companies laying off like large portions of their workforce, and you've got a company like Twitter who laid off like the recruiters.
Yeah. And people need to understand what the word splintered means. We have a splintered job market.
Yeah.
They're in different sections. They're different sects, not sects like cult sects, but they're sects. Well, that's arguable, but all that to say that what applies in one doesn't apply to other. Learn to listen with discretion, discernment, not as a way to react and respond based off of information that's spilled over into the table. Well, let's go into your number 2 problem for recruiters.
My number 2 recruiter problem is a job seeker who is unprepared. That puts a lot of work on us. And don't get me wrong, I don't mind doing it. But again, we're in a time where recruiters are heavily taxed in terms of the number of positions, thus the number of hiring managers, thus the number of candidates that they're working with. Like, it's exponential. And while we would love to give you that extra care and spend time, like revise your resume, make sure you show up to your interview, make sure we prep you. Like, sometimes we can only send you a document that to get you up to speed. Sometimes we really can't go over our allotted 30-minute phone screen because we've got one like right on the back end of it. A lot of times we can't answer your unsolicited email right away. And you've got people who come into, again, and I can speak for this because I have worked at very large, well-known organizations. You got people that really aren't coming to the table knowing what even the job is that they applied for, the one that I'm talking to them about. They just know it's at ABC company and they want to work there. When I'm screening you and you're not even prepared to have a conversation with me, and I've given you and we scheduled this time. I didn't cold call you. We said, you told me you could talk at this time and you're not ready. Like that puts a strain on me. And I am seeing that more, or I'm seeing people who just, and I get it. I know you haven't, that times are different. And we haven't interviewed in person for the most part, a great deal, or we're not really used to doing things over camera, or even the types of interviews that people are having now. You got some people who are leaning more on their AI and they're letting even the interview that's supposed to be with me, the initial phone screen, be done via computer. Like we give you the tools up front. We tell you what you need to do. But I think a lot of times there's a disconnect, or there can be a disconnect where the job seeker doesn't do the same. They don't prepare the same way that we attempt to prepare them. So it does become a problem for me. So that's a big recruiter problem for me because I see it a lot.
It's a bigger job seeker problem because they're approaching everybody with their lack of clarity. And where there's a lack of clarity, there is chaos.
Yeah.
And that's going to be on the job seeker side. For you as a recruiter, you don't have to really even do that work. You could just say next if you wanted to, especially if you have a bevy of that's your empathetic side comes.
Yeah.
But there are those who are not as empathetic and will lean more towards the ones who are a lot clearer than the ones aren't because trying to cut the time because money is time. So, so job seekers need to realize the clearer you are when you come with any request, even if it's online and you're approaching someone in a networking situation, they work at the company you work at. It helps to know exactly what position you want and what you know, how much have you found out about the position. And the only blank you need to fill is what else is there, and is there another shoe that's going to drop?
Yeah.
So I think those things are much more important. You save yourself as a recruiter and everybody else a whole bunch of time.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep. We could go on to number 3. We know that the first 2 are about the job seekers, about knowing that recruiters only have so much time and so much space. And that also it helps that you're clear about what you want to do. Was the third one that you have a recruiter problem that job seekers need to know.
So this is directed to hiring managers, but I think job seekers could do well to understand sometimes what we're going through. Hiring managers don't always know what they're looking for. You're laughing because you've been through this. They send us these long lists of things. I can ask them, okay, what are the top 3? And they give me 18. I don't think that I didn't ask you to multiply. I asked you for 3.
The top 3, right?
3 must have 3.
And none of them include the salary range.
Well, again, that's a different conversation.
It's a different conversation, but it is real.
Well, what you're touching on is actually my number 4. So, let's put a pin in that.
Okay.
Yes.
Time out.
So,
all right.
So yes. So they don't always know what they're looking for. And then worse, they change their mind in the middle, or they cancel the job in the middle and start out with something else after we've already talked to 10 people based on this criteria. And now you want me to talk to 15 more people based on slightly different criteria, because now that you've talked to people, you really know what job you really need filled or what problem you really need solved. You see what I'm saying? So that's that's a thing for me. And adding on to that is my number 4.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Everybody to understand that recruiters are seen as these, we're seen like the all and powerful Oz, but we absolutely are not. If you've seen The Wizard of Oz or The Wiz, which I do prefer, that even the Wiz had responsibilities, but he didn't really have any power. And that is what with recruiters, like we have a lot of responsibilities. Our hand is in every part of the process, but we don't control and we don't have power over the process a lot of times. And it causes issues. Like you were just saying, it's not up to the recruiters would love to put the salary expectations on every single job posting because it saves us time having to ask you. All I have to do is confirm the salary range or the salary listed on the jobs posting. Is that amenable to you? Or are there ways that we can are there other things that we can even talk about up front that says if it was $5,000 more, this would work, or if it was that, but I could also, then we can have that conversation and not have to get so far down the track to turn somebody away who's awesome, who loves us and who we love and the hiring manager loves and we're ready to get them on board. Then they're like, actually, we don't want that. So that's a big thing for me. The disjointed processes. Not only that, it prolongs thing.
Right.
And I'm going to point this
Yeah.
out again.
Yes, go ahead.
I'll point this out again. Hiring managers and job seekers need to understand it's a one for you. At a most, it's a one and however many other interviewers for that one job. But for every one of you, recruiters have additional people that are a part of that they have to be managing, so to speak. Other candidates, our coordinators, our hiring manager, our interviewers for just that one position. And then what about the other 20 that we're dealing with too? So it becomes a lot for us to do that. And when you don't have a process that is cohesive, when you have one that injects a great deal of self-imposed governance, and when you ask the question, why do we do this? And the only answer is because we always have. And it's not a means to an end. It's not like you mentioned for the Jack Kelly physician. It's not an issue. It really serves no purpose. It's just a box that you check. It becomes a problem. Manual processes make things harder for us. Fake automation makes things harder for us. We have a lot of tools, but not all the time do we have systems.
It's dating. Neither one knows what they want. Then of course they're not going to choose each other. And it is like that. If the employer, the interviewer really doesn't know what they want, they never get together. But if they're clear about what they want, at least one can persuade the other one to give them a second look. That goes back to what we're talking about, is the lack of clarity on both parts. And I think I've been in a hiring manager situation, hired a whole bunch of people in my past lives. And one thing we did have, we were at least clear about what we wanted and what that looked like. It
Okay.
was just a matter of someone understanding what we're communicating, which is the other half of it, is being able to communicate exactly what the position is, as opposed to give them this fantasy idea. We ideally want someone. You ideally want someone for real, and that's the language a lot of us have heard over our lives. We ideally want someone. This is not ideal, and it's not really ideal. And then, Lord knows, should it be something that's completely different once somebody gets into the situation.
Yeah.
But I think that's one of the things that, as you began to say, when people are clear, you can proceed with every phase of the hiring process from the managers. And as a job seeker, you can also know what flags to look for. If you don't know what flags to look for, then you are going to be lost or you're going to be a victim.
I think one of the things that job seekers do recognize in terms of the process is an interview process that keeps going and going and going like an Energizer bunny. And
Sure.
again, recruiters, and when I say I'm saying recruiters can give all of the feedback if they want, say, you know what, this is not okay. Like, this is too much. Pick someone, or like they've talked to enough people. If you're not going to make an offer, then please let them move on to somebody else. Stop bringing them back every time. Stop bringing them back over and over again. Say, oh, wait, one more thing. Oh, wait, one more thing. That's where it gets to be an issue. I've had that with certain candidates, and I've always given them the opportunity to opt out. Because I'm like, if this is not something that you want to continue to pursue, I completely understand, because I try to set expectations up front. because, I'm going in saying this is going to be a 3 interview, for example, a 3 interview process. And now we're up to 8. And I'm not exaggerating depending on the industry. And I've had a hard time getting folks to do panel interviews, even to even cut down on the number. I want every single person to interview them. Like for an hour, who's going to give up 8 hours of their time to talk to every person? That's a lot.
That's insane. That's what panel interviews are supposed to be for.
Yeah.
But all in all, job seekers also have to understand that you can't be subject to everybody's scrutiny and be able to expect them to pick you still, even if you've gone through all those multiple rounds. That's why we always give the advice that, hey, you make sure you have 8 other companies that you're looking at,
Yeah.
that maybe 5 of them that you interview with me. So if they're taking their time, that's okay. I've got these other 4 that are moving along just fine while you're looking around. So I think that's the biggest lesson for most job seekers to learn, is that we don't wait on the one.
Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Never worth it. So number 5 here, we tied 3 and 4 together. And for the time that we have, let's go ahead and get into number.
What did Erica Badu say? She's an artist and she's sensitive about her stuff. That's how I feel about recruiting. Yes, I'm being PG for the audience.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes,
Yes.
respect. I don't like getting ghosted. I get ghosted. I get ghosted by job seekers. I get ghosted by hiring managers. And believe it or not, I have hiring managers who they start off, boom, out the gate. We've set our recruiting strategy. I'm screening. I'm done. I'm trying to set up interviews for them, and they go dark on me, like they're gone. Or they wait a month, or they post a job, wait a month or 2 months. And I'm like, hey, can we have a conversation? Hey, can we have a conversation? Hey, can we talk about this role? And then a month later, they're like, hey, what's up with my role? What? I've done 18 things since then. What are you talking about? Please leave me alone. Or you have,
That's fascinating.
and I have job seekers who apply that ghost you. Like, job seekers, I'm not talking about the ones that I'm looking for. That's not ghosting. If I'm out there and I'm constantly and I'm trying to make contact with you 1, 2, 3 times and you never respond, that's different. That's not ghosting, because there was never anything. If you apply for my job and I reach out to you and you write me back, yeah, I'm interested, here's my time's available, and then you don't show up for the interview, you don't show up for the phone screen, or you wait 2 weeks and then you're like, oh yeah, I was on vacation. What's up with that job? It's filled, honey. It's filled. Don't come back after you put all your eggs in that basket and it didn't work out. And now you're like, oh, let me go back over here to Keirsten and herself. She'll take me back. No, baby, that role is filled.
Yeah, that's a shame too, because I think, and it's interesting here online, the job seekers being ghosted. And
Oh no, job seekers definitely get ghosted, but recruiters get ghosted too.
Yeah, I see that it's both, and I don't think there's a solution in sight anytime soon. And I think that as long as you haven't put all your eggs in one basket on either side, I think you can overlook it and you eventually get over it. You didn't even go on a date, but you had to call initial phone call.
No, we went on a date. I paid. It was like we had lobster and shrimp. Like, I rolled out the carpet for you. I even sent you home in an Uber, and you just stopped to commute. You just stopped answering my call.
That's not the way it's supposed to go. At least let me know. Yeah. But in any case, I think that one of the things that job seekers should be able to do, though, because it is the job seeker's disadvantage more so than anybody else, because you don't have a job. And I always look at it from the job seeker sense that I understand that recruiters need to do their jobs and people need to move on and move forward with what they are. But at least you are active with yours and they're inactive with theirs in many times, unless again, God, for other jobs that you're dating along. But I think that all that's very important to say, that nobody should put all the eggs in one basket. And I don't know if there's a solution necessarily anytime real soon, because there's just going to be this chess game that'll go on to see who's going to blink first. But all that said, thank you so much for pointing all of this out for us. And I'm sure that will resonate with a whole bunch of people. For people who want to get in contact with you and follow you and do all the things with you, how can they do so?
I am everywhere at TrapRecruiter because I know people have a hard time saying and spelling Keirsten Greggs. That was a jab at you. Sorry about that.
I deserved it.
But
Yeah,
at
I deserve it.
TrapRecruiter on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and my website, everything at TrapRecruiter.
Okay, cool. I mean, that's traprecruiter.com.
Yes.
Okay, be sure to say that. I know one time we were doing a show and you said, don't put my website there. It's not ready or something other.
No,
That's
I
okay.
haven't been updated in a while, but
Okay.
people still seem to get value from it and understand what I do. So
Oh, yeah,
I
you have great advice and points to your videos on your podcasts and things. Yeah, but update your website. Sometime. So, yeah, cool. Anyway. Anyway, yes, update it. Seriously. No, but thank you very much. It'll be fun to have the replay. This is going to be replaying on YouTube tomorrow morning, sometime in the morning.
Okay.
So definitely catch it there. And it's already on the Twitters and the LinkedIn platform. So you can go back and watch it. And of course, we'll be back for one more in the series for the fall. Kirsten and I talked about doing a follow-up to our last show where we use the top 10 hip hop tracks that help give you career advice. Next time, I think we are going to go with the 90s R&B version of that show, career advice. So look forward to that. We're going to do that sometime in August, maybe go to September. Whatever we feel like it. Depends on the moon setting and all that kind of stuff. In the meantime, thank you very, thank you very much for joining us here for Voice the Job podcast. You can find us everywhere from Apple to Spotify. Spotify is a cool platform to have a podcast on. I'm very glad to have it. Also, Audible. If you listen to Audible books, you can use Audible in all these different ways. And you have one right in your bedroom, so you can load that Audible app and load the podcast right there and listen while you get a little bed. If I bore you too much, at least you'll fall asleep. So thank you very much for joining us. You all have a great day. Peace and the body of love. See you later.
Thanks for having me.